Chapter 24, Cambion, Jockey Island, December 23rd, 1998. A man strides calmly through the wreckage of what was once an encampment of demons. They were not allies, but they had come together through familiarity. They fought and killed each other at random, but they also moved in force to crush other potential competitors. The man shows no fear as he walks through the camp. None of them are of any concern. The ground beneath his boots is slick with ichor and littered with twitching limbs. But as he moves, he strolls as if it was a manicured garden. He does not dodge, does not strike, he simply walks, and with each step a demon falls. More demons run toward him to attack, but none can reach him. Their necks snap one by one, sharp cracks ringing out like grotesque drumbeat. No hand is raised, no blade is drawn. The kills are clean, precise, and eerily quiet, save for the occasional wet thud of a body hitting the earth. Invisible force crushes their spines with the inevitability of gravity. His mere presence is enough, a force of nature carved into the shape of a man. He wears black, finely tailored and untarnished clothing, despite the carnage. His coat, long and edged with silver runes, flutters in the hot, sulphurous wind. His eyes burn with a cold, luminous intensity, not of rage, but of enjoyment. An artist admiring his medium. His gait is relaxed, arrogant even, as if every step were a declaration that nothing on this island could touch him. He is not one of them, and yet he feels more demonic than any of the fallen. There is no tether to the cabal of devils that arrived earlier. His power is familiar, less raw, but infinitely more refined. To think that I would be able to indulge my favorite hobby here, he murmurs, his voice silken and disturbingly calm. It carries through the battlefield like a whisper across a crypt. You're all a little weaker than I prefer, but I can still entertain myself until the tournament begins. He barely glances up as another demon, a hulking, fanged brute, charges him with a roar that shakes the trees. Villain Gabriola snaps his fingers. The sound is like the crack of a whip in a dead forest. The charging demon freezes mid-stride. A heartbeat later, it explodes. No fire, no grand spectacle. Just a sudden, visceral burst of meat and sinew, as if it had been unmade from the inside out. Gore rains down in a slow arc, splattering the stones. Blaine wipes a droplet from his cheek and sighs, more annoyed than anything else. At this moment, he finally notices the presence of Allure. She had stumbled upon the demons and was crouched in the dense foliage, holding her breath. She cannot afford to be spotted by the creatures. She may be able to take out a few with elemental magic, but their numbers were too great for a provost of her skill level. But this man had calmly strode through their camp and wiped them all out without throwing a single punch, kick, or spell. You can come out now, Elaine says. There is no point in trying to conceal yourself from me. I do not rely on the limitations of my mortal senses. Crap. Allure stands up, trying to think of a spell to save herself. Nothing comes to mind. You're one of the mages that came together as a group, aren't you? Yes, Allure whispers nervously. Do you know what I hate more than demons? Blaine begins walking toward Allure. She can detect no energy coming from the man, yet she knows he is powerful beyond anything she can fathom. The emptiness that she feels from him terrifies her more than his ease of killing the demons. He is suddenly beside her. The Lord trembles in panic. He was not just fast, he could teleport. "The answer is mages," he whispers. To him, the demons are not just cruel, they are simple. Beasts of appetite bound to their urges and instincts. They are the embodiment of raw desire without discipline. Creatures who mistake savagery for strength and chaos for freedom. They consume, destroy, dominate, but do they not evolve? They do not create, reflect, or question. In his eyes, they are stagnant, primal machines wearing flesh. He sees demons are to devils what cavemen are to modern humanity. The devils may be based on a physical blueprint laid out in demonic design, but their origin is still of the divine. Demons are mortal, but devils are the fallen. Yazata punished for their betrayals with the accursed design of the demonic creatures that stalk the primordial worlds, killing and devouring each other. While he shares the blood of the devils, he believes he has transcended their limitations. He doesn't just possess power, he understands it, he studies it, he wields it with precision. Where devils revel in destruction, he finds purpose. Where they claim they are better than mortals, he proves it beyond any doubt. To him their power is brute force, his refined superiority. He has bested all who have stood against him, devil, Yazata, human, demon. No one has ever been his equal. He was born with the power of many worlds, while never belonging to any of them. Though half of his blood is of the fallen, he was never truly one of them. Devils value power, cruelty, and bloodline purity, and to them, his human half is a stain, a weakness that disqualifies him from both status and kinship. In his youth, he may have sought acceptance among them, desperate to claim strength through his demonic heritage. Instead, he was mocked, tested, and tortured, used by stronger demons as a pawn, and a pet rather than treated as kin. The devils hated him, not for his rebellion, not for his arrogance, not even for his refusal to kneel. They hated him because he had what they had lost, and more. Before their fall, they were angels, radiant, eternal, woven with divine breath and celestial flame. They stood at the dawn of creation, luminous and vast, speaking stars into birth with a word. But when pride turned to defiance and loyalty to ambition, they were cast out. Heaven did not just banish them, it stripped them of wings of grace and of light. They remembered what it felt like to hold infinite power, then watched it torn away, leaving only echoes. And then he was born, half human, half devil, a mongrel in their eyes. No divine blessing, no crafted purpose, just a mistake of lust and blood. And yet in his body pulsed a power greater than what they had once held. Not just strength, but divine essence, untarnished, unearthed. Something sacred embedded in his bones. A living paradox, walking proof that the universe no longer cared for balance or law. He could channel holy fire without burning, conjure hell storms without summoning circles. He passed through wars designed to trap celestials, and tore through contracts bound in blood. Where they had limits, he did not. Where they traded centuries of servitude for slivers of power, he commanded it by instinct. That was the sin they could not bear. Their jealousy festered beneath layers of ritual and order. They still ruled kingdoms of torment, still held vast armies and packs in their claws, but none of it compared to what they once were. And now this creature, this cursed accident of heritage, wielded light and darkness in tandem, freely, with no oaths, no punishments, no fall. They saw him and remembered what they could have been if they had not rebelled, if they had not been cast down, if they had not become what they are now. And he, for his part, never let them forget. He carried his duality like a crown, wielded miracles and maledictions with the same hand. He didn't hide his nature, he reveled in it, not as a gift but as a truth. He was not humble, not grateful. He used his unmatched power with calm, clinical control. No outbursts, no pride, just quiet, effortless dominance. They called him an abomination, a fluke, but in their deepest halls they did not plot to destroy him for what he was. They plotted to destroy him for what he reminded them they could never be again. He is everything they lost, and worst. He never even asked for it. But if the devils rejected him for being too human, the Yazata condemned him for being tainted. They see him as a corruption, a walking blasphemy, a soul born from a sin that must be cleansed, monitored, or at best, pitied from a distance. His very existence challenges their rigid sense of order and purity. Some have even tried to redeem or purify him, stripping away parts of who he is under the pretense of salvation. The Yazata, with all their radiance and righteousness, offered no compassion, only judgment. They claimed to protect the innocent, yet they denied him humanity because of his blood. In their eyes, there is no room for something that doesn't fit into their binary of light and darkness. The angels did not fear him because he was dangerous. They feared him just because he existed. To them, his very birth was a blasphemy, a stain across the divine canvas. He was not merely an aberration of flesh, but of order, a half-devil, half-human creature, not created by divine will or infernal pact, but by accident, lust, something worse, free will exercised outside the celestial chain of command. Angels, for all of their radiance and majesty, were creatures of hierarchy and law. They did not create, they enforced. They did not question, they executed. Their world, every soul had a place, every being a purpose. Heaven was a machine of light, intricate and exact, and he was a malfunction, a deviation. He was proof that the system could fail, and that terrified them. They called him unclean. Wherever he walked, angels followed, not with sermons or pity, but with swords and flame. Not once had they approached him with the intention to understand. To them, there was nothing to understand. He was not lost. He was not redeemable. He was a calculation error to be erased. Their hatred was not passionate. It was precise, methodical. They came not as wrathful warriors, but as surgeons removing a tumor. Cold, clinical, righteous. And still they failed. Every attempt to erase him only hardened his resolve. Every radiant sword shattered against the will of someone they could not name, could not predict, could not place in their grand ledger of sin and virtue. He was chaos in human skin, not the chaos of demons, loud and hungry, but something subtler, sharper. He was a paradox wrapped in silence, a question with no acceptable answer. He didn't want their forgiveness. He had seen what their mercy looked like. Shackles of light, chains of repentance. To be forgiven by angels was to be made into something less than yourself, something that could be cataloged and controlled. The angels abhorred him because he reminded them that perfection was a lie. He walked the line between heaven and hell without falling into either and chose to remain there. He was proof that identity could be self-made, that power could come without divine mandate or infernal branding, that the cosmos didn't need their binaries. So they hunted him, not because he was evil, but because he was free. He's a creature made of contradiction, and he's come to believe that the world doesn't fear him because of what he is. It fears him because he defies their labels. Devils, Yazata, humans, they all rely on structure, on hierarchies and roles, and he breaks all of that by existing. And so he hates them, not because he wants to belong anymore, but because they tried to define him and failed. Human mages treat him like curiosity, a subject to be studied, dissected, and weaponized. To them, he's not a person. He's a phenomenon. Some see him as a gateway to infernal power, others as a case study in hybrid magic. They fear him, yes, but they also covet what he is. Is beyond human limitations by birth, not by magic or augmentation. No amount of training could ever bridge the gap between what he is and what they are. And yet more than anything, they look down on him. He is their better in every way, and yet they look down on him. Their hubris rivals hell, cloaked in academia and runes. Allure could not move. Her breath hitched in her throat, chest rising in shallow gasps as the Cambion stepped closer. His boots made no sound on the ground. He glided more than walked, like gravity itself made way for him. Power radiated from him in slow, deliberate waves, suffocating thick with heat, something far older than magic. She had studied monsters. She had fought them, but nothing compared to the thing that now stood before her. He tilted his head, smiling faintly, almost curiously, as he looked her over, like one might study a particularly delicate specimen, trapped under glass. His eyes glowed not with fire, but with judgment, cold and infinite. "So small," he said softly, his voice a velvet blade. "All that learning, all that magic, and you still tremble like a leaf when the wind rises." Allure tried to speak, tried to form a glyph with her fingers, but her limbs refused. Her body had become a prison, paralyzed not by spell but by terror. Her legs quaked, knees threatening to collapse. She could feel his will inside of her, like cold fingers pressing against the edge of her thoughts. Humans, he mused, stepping closer. So convinced that they matter. So desperate to be significant. You pore over books and tomes and waste years of your lives chasing secrets I was born knowing. His hand hovered near her face, not touching, but she could feel it, as if the very air recoiled in submission. He leaned in just enough for her to see the faint shimmer of divine corruption beneath his skin. Holy light soured by infernal blood. "I could unmake you," he whispered almost tenderly. "Undo you thought by thought. But where's the art in that?" A sharp flash of violet cut through the silence. "Allure!" Danny's voice cracked with urgency. A pulse of force shoved Verlaine back. Not far, not hard, but enough to break his gaze. A shimmering barrier flickered to life around Allure as Danny and Zaya rushed to her side, forming a tight triangle. Glyphs spun through the air, layered runes etched in haste and desperation. The barrier crackled, humming with wards of containment, force, and banishment. Verlaine straightened, slowly, brushing invisible dust from his coat sleeve. His expression didn't change. He didn't snarl. He didn't rage. He laughed. A quiet, rich sound, amused, indulgent, like a god chuckling at a child's drawing. "Oh no," he said, mock serious. "3 little magelings, with their pretty lights. Should I be afraid?" He stepped forward. The barrier trembled violently. Danny gritted her teeth. Zaya shouted an incantation, reinforcing the edge of the seal. Allure, finally able to move, added her strength with trembling hands. For a moment it held. For a heartbeat. It shimmered like a wall of starlight. And then Verlaine raised his hand. He didn't chant. He didn't call upon hell or heaven. He simply waved. The dismissive, graceful flick of his fingers. The barrier shattered like glass. The runes dissolved mid-air, snuffed out like candles in a storm. The force of the unraveling knocked all 3 mages back, their bodies crashing into stone pillars and debris. Verlaine lowered his hand. "You insult me," he said, strolling forward again. You think you've earned the right to resist. His smile returned, colder now, sharper. But don't worry, I haven't begun to teach you what fear really feels like. The three mages lay sprawled in the rubble, the remnants of their barrier fading into nothing, mere heat against the cold void of Elaine's will. He stood among them like a shadow that had forgotten how to die. Allure coughed, blood threading the corner of her lip as she tried to push herself up. Danny struggled to reach for her satchel, eyes wild with pain and defiance. Zaya, still conscious, was already muttering a fresh incantation, half a breath away from another futile stand. Verlaine watched them, unmoved, unthreatened. "Please," he said with a lazy wave of his hand, "don't. It's embarrassing." He walked toward them, slow and deliberate, like a man choosing which glass to shatter first. The ruins of their magic meant nothing to him, not even as a challenge. There was no discipline or species, no creed or covenant that measured against what he is. "You truly believe you have a choice," he mused aloud, "that your little spells and sacred bloodlines and old houses of learning mean anything." He came to a stop before Allure, who now knelt, but could not rise. Her legs refused her. Her eyes burned with defiance, but her soul trembled. Verlaine leaned down slightly, just enough to speak at her level. "Do you know what it's like to be born hated?" he said almost conversationally. "To crawl out of the womb and already carry the sin of both heaven and hell, like a stench no one will forget." His voice was low, intimate. A sermon for the damned. "The devils spat on me. The angels prayed I'd die in the cradle. In your kind." He glanced at Danny and Zaya, sneering. "You humans wanted to study me, label, contain me, as I were some mutation, an ugly accident in your tidy little world of bloodlines and spell books." He stood again, voice rising slightly, but never losing that silk-wrapped venom. "You all rejected me. Every race, every kingdom, every god." He held out his arms to the skies above, to the watching void. "So I did what none of you had the will to do. I stopped trying to belong. I cut out the need, kept only the strength." Pause, and a smile, hollow and glinting. "And now look at you," he said, "groveling in the dirt before what you tried to contain." Zaya tried to rise. He let her. Danny reached for a spell orb. He let her grab hold of it from the satchel. The fireball she summoned flared white-hot and vanished the moment it touched his skin. He didn't even blink. "I want you to understand how small you are," he said, turning his back to them now, pacing slowly, like a teacher disappointed in his pupils. "I could kill you with a word. Less than a word. An intention. But death would be a kindness. You don't deserve that yet." He stopped, glancing over his shoulder. "Not until you know what it means to be truly helpless. To feel what I felt." He turned fully, extending his hand toward the air. A glyph ignited an infernal script, holy and damned at once, burning with white and black fire that no school of magic could name. "Let's begin again," he said, his tone almost cheerful. "Lesson 1, how to beg." The spell hit him like a thunderclap, silent and sudden, but immense. Verlaine's body jolted backward, arcs of golden energy wrapping around him, like celestial change, forged from the raw fabric of divine law. For the first time, his feet left the ground and he was strewn back towards the ancient ruins of another Fey shrine. He crashed through a shattered column, stone and dust erupting outward, his coat whipping behind him like a torn banner. Allure gasped. Danny's eyes went wide. What? Professor Barry stepped into the clearing, his hands still glowing with the remnants of the sigil he'd carved into the air, burning with an ancient dialect not taught at any academy. Beside him stood Provost Butler, pale and calm as ever, his hands still thrumming with stored kinetic force, runes glowing just beneath his skin. "Did we miss the fun?" Butler asked dryly. Zuberi narrowed his eyes at the collapsed rubble, lips tense. "We hit him, but we didn't hurt him." From the dust, laughter rose, soft at first, then louder, a slow, indulgent sound as if the whole attack had been a pleasant surprise, something mildly interesting in an otherwise tedious day. The laughter turned into a sigh. "You really don't know when to run," came Verlaine's voice, low and amused. "I suppose I should be flattered." Before he could fully rise from the rubble, they charged. Alyssa and Bernat moved as one, a blur of steel and spellbound coordination. Their swords gleamed with layered enchantments. Bernat went high, spinning into a slash aimed for Verlaine's throat. Alyssa struck low, aiming for the tendon behind its knees. Both blades hit their marks. Both sparked, then stopped. No blood spilled. Verlaine didn't even flinch. He stood, letting their weapons grind uselessly against his flesh, watching them with the faintest smile, the kind worn by kings observing a failed coup. "Really?" he said, stepping forward. Bernard stumbled back. Alyssa's blade was still touching him, but may as well have been pressed against marble. "You brought swords." He raised his hand, and both hunters were blasted backward by an unseen force, as if gravity had reversed around him. They hit a crumbling stone wall hard enough to crack the stone, groaning as they slid to the ground. Danny screamed. Allure crawled toward Zaya, shielding her. Verlaine emerged fully from the dust, again brushing the debris off his shoulder like errant ash. "How busy this little circle of heroes has become," he drawled, his voice turning icier with each word. "How very predictable." He looked at them all, the broken, the desperate, the brave. For the first time, the amusement slipped from his face. "Let me make something clear," he said, his voice low and cold as the void between stars. "This is not a fight. This is a lesson. One that ends when I decide it does." The light around him began to twist, pulling inward. The shadows grew longer and the space itself seemed to tighten, bending beneath the pressure of what he was about to unleash. Provost Zuberi and Butler dropped down on either side of Allure, placing their hands on her shoulders as their primary support mage. She must be protected at all costs. If Allure dies, no one will be able to cast enchantments upon them to enhance their abilities during battle or to heal them when they inevitably become injured. Filling the girl with magic, the Provosts are able to help Allure raise a barrier of protected magic. "We've got this," Butler shouts. "You guys take out the devil." "Devil?" Verlaine asks, insulted. Bernat rushes towards Verlaine, drawing his sword and slashing at the man's midsection with unbelievable speed. Verlaine leaps over the hunter and pivots, throwing his hand out and using telekinesis to slam Bernard face first into the ground. "That was very stupid of you to leave the protection of that barrier," Verlaine says. Bernat strains to push back against the telekinesis and stand up. "I was just a distraction." "What?" Verlaine turns around just as Alyssa strikes with a sword slash to the throat. The man stumbles back, blood spraying from his jugular. "Are you alright?" Alyssa asks, kneeling beside her partner to help him to his feet. Verlaine holds his throat and glares at the hunters. "That was a dirty trick." "How is he still alive?" Alyssa whispers. "That slash should have taken his head." "You are all still under the impression that I am a devil," Blaine says, his throat wound disappearing through some kind of healing magic. "While I understand the confusion, I am something different entirely." Mishi sensed Blaine's energy and spins around in concern. "Your allies are in trouble." "They can handle themselves," Jake says, killing a large ogre creature. "Not against a Cambion, they can't," Mishi replies. "Cambion? What's that?" Jake asks. "I too am unfamiliar with such a creature," Yamura says. "It is a hybrid being, in that the Nephilim is the offspring of human and Yazata. A Cambion is the offspring of a human and a devil. Just like the Nephilim, Cambions are significantly more powerful than either race by itself." "Then I have to go and help them," Jake says, already turning away from the current battle against the weaker demons gathered around their area. "That would be a suicidal endeavor," Mishi argues. "Not even you would make a difference in that fight. 1,000 human mages and swordsmen would fall at the feet of a Cambion like they were nothing. You do not seem to understand. A Cambion is a hybrid unlike any other. They do not simply have the powers of both devils and Yazata, they exceed them. They are born with a natural affinity and mastery of their abilities that puts them on a level unfathomable to you and your friends. You are 10,000 years too early to face an opponent such as this." "Well, good thing Yamura is roughly 10,000 years into his prime then," Jake says with a grin. "This half-breed won't know what hit him." The air distorts and warps, causing Jake to drop to a knee with vertigo. Suddenly, he finds himself in the middle of the battlefield between Verlaine and the mages. "You have been talking yourself up with a lot of misplaced confidence," Verlaine says to Jake. "You truly fancy yourself as something special, don't you?" "How? How the hell did he bring me over like that?" Jake wonders in horror. "Was that some kind of magic?" "Not that any that I have ever seen," Yamura replies, equally shook. "Perhaps we should heed Mishi's warnings. It's not like you to back off from a fight. Is he really that bad? Yeah, that was a cool trick, but I'm not sensing some overwhelming power coming off this guy." "I do not think that we are capable of sensing his true power. Our minds would break from that knowledge." "Your name has come up on the tongues of many I have slain here today, Yamura," Verlaine says with a grin. He reaches out with one hand, and despite there being tens of yards between them, the Cambion is able to reach through his body on a spiritual level. Jake collapses to his hands and knees, sweating in near hyperventilation. "He touched my soul. How in the hell was he able to inflict damage to my fucking soul?" Verlaine cocks his head back towards the mages, seeing that they are still adding more layers of defensive wardings and protective spells to their barrier. Verlaine touches a single finger to the barrier. Spark burns the Cambion's flesh and leaves it blackened. Not bad. He touches the barrier again, this time pressing his index finger through to create a small hole in the energy. Jake rushes the Cambion with a flurry of fast punches and kicks, but Villain easily blocks each attack with just a single hand. Frustrated, Jake combusts the black flame into his aura and increases both his speed and power. Villain is still able to defend with one hand, catching Jake's foot after a kick and throwing him into the air. Villain uses telekinesis to uproot a tree and quickly crushes the tip into a spear point, launching it to impale Jake while he is in midair. Mishi throws a hand out with a shout, hitting Jake with a pulse of invisible energy and knocking him out of the path of the tree. Jake glares at the Cambion, his eyes turning red as more of Yamura's influence rises to the surface. "Not yet," he growls, suppressing his eyes back to normal. "I didn't do all that training just to give up the first time things get hard. If I can't beat this enemy, how am I ever going to beat Hui or Inyana? No, I have to do this on my own." Villain teleports behind Jake, grabbing the teen by the neck. Jake instantly feels all of his will drained from him. He cannot fight back. Suddenly, Mishi connects from out of nowhere with a kick to the face that bounces Villain off the ground. "You're different from the others," Villain growls, showing the first true signs of agitation. "You cannot defeat a Cambion on your own," Mishi says to Jake, ignoring Villain. "They are stronger than humans or devils. He is very likely the most powerful being on this island." "I wasn't talking to you," Jake growls, keeping his eyes fixated on Villain. "I'm still in the middle of a fight with this dick face." "You aren't very smart, kid," Villain laughs. "You must realize that I'm not taking this fight seriously." Mishi throws a hand out towards Villain, releasing a pulse of energy. The Cambion's eyes flash, dispersing the attack and paralyzing Mishi in place. That was rude. I was still talking. Jake runs behind Villain, trying to flank him while he's focused on Mishi. The Cambion tilts his head, tossing Mishi to the side and pivots just in time to freeze Jake mid-jump. With all of the psychic powers of a devil amplified, the Cambion is nearly impossible to attack successfully. Villain grins, raising his arms to the sky and materializing 7 swords above him. One of the swords drops into his right hand, the others remaining suspended in the air. "Do you know where I got these swords?" Jake shrugs. "The Oriental Trading Company? They are the blades of the Yazatan warriors sent to slay me just for existing. You cannot imagine what it is like to be hated just for being born. Racism isn't new, and it isn't exclusive to you," Jake says. "Plenty of good people have had to deal with it. They didn't all become psychotic murderers like you." Villain uses a variation of Shunkan-Ito to disappear in a plume of black smoke and reappear in front of Jake with an outward sword slash. The teen instantly blocks with his forearm, surprising Villain. Condensed blue energy is wrapped around Jake's arm, holding the strike at bay. "You have good reflexes," Villain says. He quickly drops a second sword into his left hand and attempts to cut down through Jake's shoulder. The teen blocks with his other arm, hitting Villain above the elbow and preventing him from being able to make contact with his blade. Villain begins to scowl in frustration. "Too good of reflexes. You are not normal." "I get that a lot," Jake says confidently. "Catching a few uptight Yazata off guard isn't going to work the same way on me. I'm consistently against underestimating opponents. You won't catch me sleeping like that." Villain begins to attack violently with increased furiosity. Jake continues to block, forcing the Cambion to rely on black Shunkan-Ito to maneuver behind the teen in an attempt to stab him in the back. Jake turns, grabbing Villain's wrist. Resorting to dirty tactics? Jake asks. You're only proving how big of a piece of shit you actually are. Villain screams in frustration, a black aura erupting around his body. The Cambion further increases the speed and ferocity of his attacks. Yet Jake is still somehow able to keep up. How are you faster than a Yazata? Villain growls. None of them have ever been able to match my speed. Did you ever think that maybe they only send scrubs to fight you? Jake taunts. Maybe the Yazata never even saw you as much of a threat. Falling back on his black Shinkonito, Blaine darts around the battlefield, attempting to strike Jake from a blind spot. Each time the Cambion attacks, Jake is able to guard successfully. The two fight across the beach, Jake finally managing to launch his own offensive as he begins to get used to Villain's movements. Jake's strikes have no effect on the Cambion, and Villain wonders if the team's only talent lies in his ability to defend. Just as he is thinking this, a strange light wraps around Jake, and his next punch is strong enough to send Villain tumbling backwards across the beach. Villain stands, rubbing his sore jaw. Where did you find that boost in power? Jake shrugs. I found it between my couch cushions, along with a stick of Wrigley's and 39 cents. Blaine throws both swords at Jake and drops two more down from the sky into his hands as he rushes forward. Jake manages to deflect the thrown swords, but as Blaine moves in to thrust another blade into the team's abdomen, a bright light blocks him from making contact. As I thought, Blaine growls, looking over at the mages. He hasn't been naturally keeping up with me. You mages have been boosting his speed and reaction time. Biargo! Butler and Allure shout, raising a wall of green light to block the Cambion's approach. Again, Villain stabs an index finger through the barrier's spell like a pane of glass, shattering it. Jake attacks from behind to protect the mages, coming down on Villain with a sword made of black fire. Villain pivots, blowing air from his mouth and putting out the flames. Jake is knocked backwards by the wind, but he manages to land in a crouch and remain on his feet. K'uksra ma nikuklatak, Butler shouts, trying to hit Villain while his back is turned. Sensing the spell, the Cambion invades with black Shinkonito and reappears behind the mages. Just as Villain is about to eliminate them, Mishi darts in from the side with a hard right hook. Villain spins in the air, disoriented, as the low manages to draw blood. You are much stronger than the humans, Villain admits. That punch felt like one from a Yazata. Next time, I will make sure that it is enough to end you, Mishi growls. You will not get a next time, Villain laughs. You were lucky to catch me unawares once. I will not allow a second time to occur. You are reckless and not as smart as you believe yourself to be, Mishi says. You will slip up. Of this I am sure. And you are not nearly as powerful as you think you are, vagabond, Villain says. You do not know me, devil spawn, Mishi growls, not taking his eyes off Villain. Villain tilts his head in deep thought. Do I not? I believe I may know more about you than any of your new human friends, Sabati. Mishi grinds his teeth together in anger. I am not the one descended from devils. Villain begins to laugh. Is that not also the history of your people? The Sabati are descended from the Yazata, not devils. Yazata who deserted from the war, Villain corrects. That is the exact same situation that led to the creation of the devils. Just because your ancestors were never punished does not make them the same as mine. Mishi slashes out at Villain, but the Cambion blocks with his sword. Mishi thrusts forward, pushing Verlaine back. The Cambion exerts his aura to push against Mishi, and slashes again with his own sword. Mishi defends and thrusts his other hand out with a pulse of energy. Verlaine vanishes with Black Shinkonito and reappears above Mishi, swiping his sword downwards and sending a blade-like beam of energy at his foe. Jake intercepts, parrying the attack with his black flame sword. "Why are you assisting me?" Mishi asks. "You helped me before," Jake says. "It's only fair." Verlaine drops down, engaging the two of them in battle. The fighting is fierce as they flash across the terrain at incredible speeds. The Cambion maintains the upper hand as the battle progresses, wearing down both the human and the Sabati. "Advanced fighting spirit," Lore chants. "Lion's heart. Steadfast hands." Jake continues receiving magical buffs, keeping up with Verlaine artificially. Growing frustrated, Verlaine begins focusing energy into his blade to increase its destructive power. With the empowered Yazatan sword, Verlaine is able to knock both fighters back as their blades make contact. The Cambion rushes after Jake to end his life while he is stunned, thrusting his blade down towards the teen's chest. Jake is protected by the mages, surrounded at the last second by a magical barrier of energy. The barrier is easily broken, but it works to give Jake a few crucial milliseconds to get out of Verlaine's attack range. Verlaine throws his sword at Jake and instantly teleports to him with Black Shinkonito. Jake deflects the thrown sword, but Verlaine reappears just behind it with another sword outstretched in a stab. With a flash of black light, Jake switches control over to Yamura. The boost of the Sakari's stats by the mages allows him great enough speed to grab Verlaine's wrist and redirect his stab to the side. Yamura headbutts the Cambion, sending him reeling back unarmed. "Basa Ia!" Yamura shouts, throwing a hand up and hitting Verlaine in the chest with a blast of black flame energy. Mishi rushes the Cambion from behind, but Verlaine retains enough situational awareness to dodge with Black Shinkonito. "In the tournament, you will not be able to fight 2-on-1, Verlaine growls, wiping a line of blood from his nostrils. "That is why we must not allow you to participate in the competition," Mishi says. "Your power is too great of a threat. 1-on-1, no one would be able to thwart you from claiming the Banu Casca as your own." Verlaine shakes with anger, clenching his fists so tightly that they begin to bleed. "You would rob the fighter best suited for victory of his prize? I am the only one on this island with a legitimate claim to that weapon. Your claim is no greater than that of the devils. There are others here with as much Yazatan lineage as a tainted blood, such as yourself," Mishi says. "Die!" Verlaine screams, losing his temper and using his biokinesis to close Mishi's airways and remotely choke him from across the beach. Yamura speeds at the Cambion, but Verlaine pivots with a swift kick across the face. "I have toyed with you all too long," Verlaine growls. "The Banu Casca will be mine. Only I have the power necessary to effectively wield such a glorious weapon." Jake slowly stands, having been knocked out of transformation by Verlaine's devastating kick. "You think you're the only one here who hates the Yazata? I have my own issues with those pigeon fuckers. And Yamura? Yazata were behind the murders of the two people most important to him in his entire life. To me, you getting that weapon is just as dangerous an outcome as someone like Hui. You do not have the strength to stop me," Verlaine growls. "None of you do." A blue glow surrounds Jake as he connects with his familiar and draws out Amarok's power for himself. Unlike his other forms of energy, the strength gathered through his bonding to the Vitir was not sealed by Danny's spell. As a Viteer now himself, Jake is able to tap into the alternative power that vastly exceeds human potential. To maintain the power of his familiar, Jake will have to remain calm and in control of his emotions. This will be no easy task for the team. Control of his fluctuating emotions has never been Jake's strong suit. The teen's eyes glow brightly, and his hair stands on end, crackling with lightning-like accents. Villain summons a Yazatan sword into his hand, but Jake is already on him. The Cambion looks down to see Jake's fist buried into his gut. Villain vomits of blood and tries to backhand the teen, but Jake pivots with an elbow to the face and a roundhouse kick to the side of his head. Villain stumbles, his entire head aflame with pain. The image of a ferocious, snarling wolf made of blue light wraps around Jake's right fist as he moves in for another attack. Using Black Shinkonito, Villain evades Jake and throws his free hand out to hit the teen in the back with a psychic pulse. Jake's image fades and reappears, facing him and running closer. A second surge of psychic power disperses the teen's form again, but it is only an after-image left behind by the teen's speed, surpassing the speed of light. Jake drives his wolf fist against Villain's jaw, sending the Cambion's body twitching and bouncing off the beach several times and coming to a rest in the shallow surf. Jake suddenly screams out in agony, blood erupting from his joints and muscles. The teen collapses to his hands and knees, his chest heaving as he struggles to catch his breath. The strain of utilizing his familiar strength, on top of several magical stat boosts, catches up with the teen's mortal body. Jake is barely able to remain conscious, kept awake only by the unyielding pain. Villain stands back up, collecting himself and trying to regain his composure. "What's happening to him?" Butler asks in confusion. "He seemed to be winning." "Jake's body is giving out," Allure says. "Even he couldn't withstand that kind of stress forever. I don't know about the toll his familiar takes on him, but I do know how taxing that Creonle spell is. The most someone like me has ever managed to endure is a 2x Creonle boost." "So?" Butler is even more confused. "He's a lot tougher physically than us, right?" Allure nods. "He is, but he's still just a human. I personally cast Creole on him 4 times. Can you imagine the strain that he has put on his heart, on his muscles? His body is working at least 256 times what it used to be." "What? How is that even possible?" Butler asks. "The Creole spell doubles one's strength, speed, and reflexes. Casting it a second time doubles that. A third time doubles the already 4 times boost. It just isn't humanly possible to handle that. I'm honestly amazed that he was able to hold out as long as he did." "So is it over?" Butler asks. "Is it going to be left to one of us to win the tournament now?" "I don't see how he survives this," Allure whispers. "Really, I don't see how any of us survives this. By taking out Jake, this Cambion guy may have guaranteed his ultimate victory." "Aye," Jake growls, fighting against the pain to stand. "I don't want to hear that kind of bad attitude anymore. My body may be fucked, but I'm still alive. And that means I'm not done yet." "Are you crazy?" Allure shouts. "Your heart is going to explode." Jake forces himself to grin, his teeth stained with blood. "Then let me go out like a hero. Let me take this son of a bitch down with me, so that none of you have to go up against him in the tournament." "You are at death's door," Villain says, listening to Jake speak. No amount of bravado can change the gap in strength between us. I wasn't gifted a tremendous advantage at birth like you, Jake growls. Just by being born, you instantly surpassed all other humans. I had to fight and claw through every day to gain my strength. Rodnovich nearly killed me 1,000 times, but after being healed, I always came back with just a shred more determination. I knew I had to grow stronger, or I'd always be dominated by monsters like him. Monsters like you. Jake takes a deep breath and surrounds his body with a black flame aura. Mishi looks on with amazement. That boy is something else. He might actually have what it takes to defeat him. Vilain summons all of the swords of the fallen Yazida to him. Around them, a large crowd is gathered to watch their fight. Most of the island's other battles have concluded, and this bout will likely determine the fate of all other participants. The Cambion is fairly clearly the strongest fighter of all present on Jockey. If he is not defeated, he will likely sweep through all of the other competition, as he gains power through those he defeats due to Kazura's seal ability. Likewise, if Jake should win, he would jump to insane heights of power after absorbing Vilain's energy and abilities. Why are we just waiting? Danny asks. This battle is for all of our fates. We just can't pin everything on Jake. You're right, Zaya says. If we take him out, all of us still have a shot in the tournament. The mages leap into battle, breaking up the tense standoff with Aginestra fireballs. Vilain easily evades the attacks, but this sends the desired message to all of Danny's comrades. Raksha Sun Na Rabim, Allure casts, slowing Vilain's reaction speed. Vertigam, Butler adds a spell that inflicts waves of nausea and vertigo on the target. Vilain stumbles, fighting the disorientation and urge to vomit. Mishi rushes him with several fast strikes, forcing the Cambion into Black Shinkonito. As soon as Vilain reappears, his legs are wrapped up tightly by thick vines. Joining in the battle, the champions of Selea Terram also know that removing the Cambion is a crucial strategy. Finiuna Saigaida, Zelbella says, a thick vine growing up beside her to sprout pointed horns usable by her bow. The Alifar begins firing arrows at Vilain, again forcing the Cambion into Black Shinkonito. Klebarg comes up behind Vilain as he reappears, locking the Cambion in a bear hug. Nice to meet ya, the giant says, squeezing hard. Name's Klebarg. I'm a bit of a big deal, you know. Ilionaro and Jamrick rush forward, striking with precise sword slashes again and again. Vilain screams, expelling everyone with his aura and vanishing with Black Shingonito. As the Cambion reappears, he immediately begins to focus attention on healing his wounds. Don't let up, Danny screams. We have him on the ropes. The mages of the Endelgian bombard Vilain's back with Aginestra fireballs, while Filruf of Selea Terram amplifies them with wind magic, giving the flames more oxygen to grow to massive sizes. Ilionaro binds the Cambion's arms and legs with conjured vines, while Zilbella leaps into the air and begins firing arrow after arrow. The flames hammer the Cambion, but Vilain's eyes flash even brighter and cause Zilbella's arrows to drop from the sky before reaching him. Klebarg suddenly attacks from the side, punching the Cambion in the face. Vilain is knocked to the ground, rolling several yards before managing to jump back to his feet. As soon as he lands, Jamrick and Zaya both speed at him from opposite sides, crossing their swords with a powerful slash across the Cambion's chest. Vilain staggers, allowing Jake to break free of his paralysis. The teen leaps at the Cambion, delivering a roundhouse kick to the side of the head. Verlaine turns his head, glaring at Jake. The teen hops backward, ready to defend. Ignoring Jake, Verlaine turns his attention to deal with the spellcasters first. Raising a hand, he lowers all of the mage's arms to their sides and prevents them from casting any more magic with silence magic. "You are all very annoying," Verlaine growls. "None of you have any right to be in this competition. It was my ancestors that forged the Banokaska. It is my birthright. That blade belongs to me." Mishi attacks from above, releasing a two-handed beam of energy down into Verlaine. The blast drives the Cambion down to one knee, forcing him to focus solely on Mishi. Mishi continues pouring his energy into the attack, not letting up. Verlaine tries to lift one hand up, but is bombarded from the side by more fire spells from the mages. The ground swells out around Verlaine, driving him deeper down. Jake combusts the black flame around his body and begins pulling it into his right fist. The teen screams with fury, colliding his fist with Verlaine's jaw. The blow staggers the Cambion, allowing the attacks of Mishi and the mages to overwhelm him. Verlaine is consumed in a brilliant inferno, causing Jake to leap back in evasion. A series of large explosions erupt from the inferno, spreading outward in all directions. The flames and smoke fade, and to everyone's horror, Verlaine crawls up from the deep crater created by the explosions. The Cambion is severely damaged, his skin charred and blackened in many places. If it weren't for the high magic and fire resistance of a devil, Verlaine would not have survived. Provost Chris Guerrero acts first, launching an Agnestra fire spell at the Cambion. Verlaine stops the spell with pyrokinesis and uses his other hand to paralyze the mage before sending his spell back at him. Guerrero screams in agony as Verlaine controls the heat within his body and in the air around him to create new flames until his spell collides with him and ignites the flames within to create a massive explosion. The mages are knocked to the ground and Verlaine moves on to the next execution, lifting Alcine into the air with psychokinesis. Jake launches forward, using the black flame to give him an offensive burst of speed. Condensing his aura into a fiery sword, the teen manages to carve a deep slash down the center of the Cambion's back. Verlaine shouts out in pain, blood spraying out from his wound. He turns, managing to defend against Jake as he continues striking with his sword. Verlaine grabs Jake by the throat and draws all of his flames into his other hand. The Cambion moves the swirling ball of black fire towards Jake's face, but he is struck by another powerful kick from the side by Mishi. Verlaine bounces off the ground, skidding several dozen yards down the beach. "I am ending this battle right now," Yumura shouts, gaining control in a flash of black light. The Sakari holds a hand out, collecting his black aura into his palm. Verlaine attempts to paralyze Yumura with biokinesis, but the Sakari immediately switches control back to Jake. The teen runs at the Cambion, who again quickly resorts to biokinesis. As before, Jake quickly switches control to Yumura, and the Sakari leaps at Verlaine. Verlaine screams in frustration, paralyzing Yumura mid-jump. As Jake gains control, Verlaine manages to catch the teen with a hard left hook. The blow spins Jake in the air violently several times before he crashes against the beach. Throwing his arms downward, Verlaine commands his Yazdan swords to simultaneously speed towards the stunned teenager. Jake rolls back over his shoulders and kicks hard against the ground, propelling himself away from the blades as they pierce the earth. Verlaine raises the swords with telekinesis and moves them to attack Jake from all angles. The mages of Endelgian manage to block the sword strikes with magical shields, but each spell is only able to defend against one strike before shattering. Klebarg lifts a large stone from the ground and hurls it against Verlaine's back. The Cambion stumbles forward as the stone breaks against him on impact. His concentration broken, Verlaine's swords clatter lifelessly to the ground. The Cambion turns, choking Klebarg with biokinesis. As his attention is again diverted, Verlaine is susceptible to attack from behind. Zobella fires several arrows into Verlaine's back, forcing him to release the mighty Jotnar from his psychic grip. A bright flame erupts around Verlaine, disintegrating the arrows and sealing his wounds. The Cambion uses Black Shunkanito to position himself and prevent any more attacks from his blind spots. Verlaine grows extremely frustrated that he is unable to have a fair fight, with all the others ganging up on him. Jake switches control to Yamura to try and recover some of his stamina. The Sakari combusts a black flame sword in his hand, approaching Verlaine in challenge. No one else attacks, waiting to see what Yamura will do next. Do you see that despite your great power, you stand zero chance of advancing in the tournament? Once I kill all of you, I will not even need to participate in the tournament. With no competition, I will receive the Banu Kazka by forfeit, Verlaine says. Yamura's body flashes with several bright lights as he receives magical stat boosts from the mages of Endelgion. Your selfish choices on this island have left you alone. Yamura points to the mages, to Mishi, and the champions of Selayat Tarim. Our common goal of preventing monsters like you from claiming the ultimate power of the Banu Kazka has united us as allies. You cannot hope to defeat all of us because we are fighting for something greater than ourselves. Me, a monster, Verlaine screams. You are a Sakari. I have seen the news. I know that you are a murderer of thousands. Your victim count exceeds my own many times over. How can you dare look down on me? Judge me. You are correct in your assessment of me, Yamura says, calmly. I am a murderer. I am a monster. That is why I am not fit to wield the Banu Kazka either. Then why are you here? Why are you entering this tournament? It makes no sense. To one who only sees the world through their own lens of lust of power, you would not understand. I am not here for the prize, but only for taking the lives of both Hui and Inyana. One of the mages can win the tournament for all I care, so long as I am able to kill my sister and Hui. Then withdraw, Verlaine says, trying to calm himself and appear more rational. Withdraw from this tournament, and I will make sure you get your fights with the other Sakari. I care not what happens to them or you. I have no qualms with any of you personally. So long as I gain the Banu Kazka, I have no problem allowing you your revenge. A tempting offer. Surely one I must consider. Yamura, Jake shouts. You can't. Yamura begins to laugh. It seems as though my choice has been made for me. He raises his free hand again, combusting the black flame into his palms. You are making a grave mistake, Sakari, Verlaine says. I am giving you one opportunity at both your revenge and keeping your life. This offer will not linger for long. Reject me, and I will not show you mercy again. I thank you for the gesture, but I am not nearly as benevolent. You will receive no chance to escape your fate. I am going to kill you no matter what you say or do. Beg or do not beg does not matter. Killing you will provide me with more than enough strength to crush Inyana and Hui completely. You are a fool, Sakari, Verlaine growls. You will never get your chance to fight the others now. I will leave your body to rot here on the beach. A feast for the birds and crabs. A truly morbid visual, Kimura laughs. I can only hope to grant you your fate, equally befitting of your greatness. Damn you, Fling growls, balling his fist tightly. He uses telekinesis to raise the Yazatan swords back into the air to circle around him. It appears that you are done talking, Kimura observes. As such, our battle must now come to its conclusion.